Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy Burn with Brendan Booth. I'm your host, Brendan Booth. Today, I'm going to give you 5 bold predictions, and I'm also going to answer some Twitter questions. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Fantasy Burn.
Okay, everybody's drafts are popping off this weekend into next week. We got NFL season starting super soon, so I hope you all are ready. If you're drafting, let's go ahead and talk about some bold predictions. These are kind of my hot takes. All right, bold prediction number 1. Jaylen Warren is RB1 in Pittsburgh and finishes with more touches and points per touch than Najee Harris. Okay, I know that's not totally controversial. A lot of people are really, really high on Warren. He is a much more efficient running back than Najee Harris. Najee is a volume dependent guy. Warren is better at creating his own production, basically. So if you're looking in the back half of drafts and Jaylen Warren's there, go ahead and grab him as your running back 3, running back 4, because at some point of the season, he's going to overtake. Now, I know that there was a tweet today talking about how Najee's the guy and Warren's the third down back and all that stuff. And I get that. And that's what coaches like to say, but I'm not buying it. Bold prediction number 2. Ezekiel Elliott scores more touchdowns than Ramondre Stevenson and Tony Pollard combined. I don't know where I came up with that one, but I'm looking for Zeke to play the goal line role, have a season similar to what Jamal Williams did last year in Detroit. Tony Pollard isn't going to score a whole lot of touchdowns, and Ramondre's not going to score a whole lot of touchdowns because Zeke is going to score the Patriots touchdowns. That's what they want to do. Ramondre is great from the 20-yard line to the 20-yard line, and he's going to put up numbers. But when it comes down to red zone carries, Ezekiel Elliott is going to pound that ball into the end zone. Bold prediction number 3, Luke Musgrave finishes as a top 10 tight end and is the highest scoring rookie tight end. Now, a lot of people have been high on Dalton Kincaid since the NFL draft. Sam Laporta has snuck into the conversation. Pre-draft, Michael Mayer was touted as the best tight end coming into the league. But Luke Musgrave is going to have the opportunity, the lack of competition, and he's a stud. So be drafting Luke Musgrave. This is a new era of tight ends. Typically, what would happen is tight ends would come into the league. They would have to learn the schemes. They would have to show that they were able to be good blockers. And then they'd earn some targets. And that was your tight end production. 2023 is the start of a new era. These guys are coming into the league, and they're basically large slot receivers. They create mismatches against linebackers because they're too fast and defensive backs because they're too big. Darren Waller kind of got the ball rolling. He was less of an inline tight end and more of a big slot. And you see what happened. He had consecutive year finishes of tight end 2 and tight end 3. Then he started dealing with injuries. NFL GMs got the picture. They don't necessarily want to have a big, huge blocking tight end anymore. They want a nimble guy who's going to be able to use his athleticism to create mismatches against the defense. Those guys I mentioned before, Laporta, Musgrave, Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Luke Ferguson in Dallas, these guys are coming in and they're not being asked to block quite as much. They're not playing inline. They're wide receivers. Exploit that in your drafts. Bold prediction number 4. Derek Carr finishes in the top 10, throws for over 5,000 yards and over 30 touchdowns. I know what you're thinking. The man is 30-something years old, and he's never done that before. He's in Dennis Allen's offense. Dennis Allen created the offense that Carr grew up in his early years in Oakland. In 2016, Derek Carr was smack in the middle of MVP debates towards the end of the season before on Christmas Eve, he was crushed and broke his leg. He's a capable quarterback. He can sling the ball. He's got Alvin Kamara out of the backfield after the first 3 games. He's got Kendre Miller after he comes back from injury, who can catch passes. He's got Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry. He's got weapons all over the field. He's in an offense that wants to sling the ball. This is not Sean Payton's New Orleans. This is Dennis Allen's Saints vision. Look for Derek Carr to absolutely go off this year. And the number 5 bold prediction, Garrett Wilson finishes as a top 5 wide receiver. He's going to make that jump, you guys. You should be taking him very early in drafts. He's your wide receiver 1. He's not going to beat out Jamar Chase. He's not going to beat out Justin Jefferson. He's not going to beat out Tyreek Hill, but he will be firmly there. I see him with the ability to have a better season than Diggs, to have a better season than Lamb. Garrett Wilson is the dude. All right, let's get to some Twitter questions. Ratim Patel, I hope I didn't butcher that first name. At which round do you think it's fair to draft Jonathan Taylor? I personally have not drafted Jonathan Taylor at any point this year. But if your heart is really set on him, I think 5th or 6th round, if he falls that far, you could do worse than having Jonathan Taylor to stash on your injured reserve for the first 4 weeks of the season. You don't even need to really supplement drafting him with getting Deion Jackson or Evan Hull or Zach Moss later in the draft. Just pick up somebody else on waivers who's likely going to play a little bit at the beginning of the season. And there's a good chance that Hull, Jackson, and Moss are going to be on waivers anyway. So I would say he's draftable, and I like his ADP now much better that he's starting on the PUP than I did before. I wouldn't have wanted him in the 1st, 2nd round, but 4th or 5th round, 6th round, if he falls that far, I would absolutely snatch him up. All right, Routine had another question. Which receiver, or is there a receiver to own on the Panthers? All right, again, that all depends on ADP. I really like Adam Thielen. I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain an entire year. I also really like Jonathan Mingo. Mingo is kind of like another Deebo Samuel. He's a thick dude, and they can scheme a lot of stuff with him. Bryce Young wants to win. He's a capable quarterback. The only question about Bryce Young is his size, not necessarily his ability or his brain or anything like that. So Carolina is kind of a mess, but I wouldn't necessarily be in the market for Terrace Marshall. Maybe Hayden Hurst, but he's not a wide receiver. Thielen really late, and Jonathan Mingo. Those are the 2 guys that I would be looking at. So SC Romero, which RB wasn't on the team last year and has a chance to make the top 15, excluding Bijan Robinson? That's a great question, and it's also a tough one just because there aren't a whole lot of guys who were switching teams. I would say I'm putting a lot of stock into Roschon Johnson, Jahmyr Gibbs. Those guys coming out, they have a chance to get into the top 15, and they weren't on those teams last year. Other guys making the switch. DeAndre Swift, if things fall right in Philly and Rashad Penny doesn't really present much competition for Swift, I think Swift definitely has the ability to get into the top 15. And do any rookie wide receivers have over 1,000 yards this season? If yes, which ones? I'm going to say no. If there was one, I think Jordan Addison has a chance to, but JSN is going into the beginning of the season kind of dinged up. I love Zay Flowers, but I don't think he's going to be the one to do that. I love Marvin Mims. I don't think he will either. I love Jaden Reed. I don't think he will either. The environment in the NFL is such that you're not really going to have 1,000-yard breakout along the lines of Randy Moss or Justin Jefferson. Next question from Mike Lindbergh. Which quarterback outside of the top 15 in Dynasty has the best chance to become a top 10 Dynasty quarterback? Okay. There aren't a lot. Anthony Richardson is one. Derek Carr is another one. If you listen to my bold predictions, I think he doesn't have the running upside, but I think he might be able to put together the volume. If Jordan Love has just an unbelievable year, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah, Anthony Richardson, Derek Carr. I think those are really the only two that are able to crack the top 10. All right, next question from Craig Schmucker. What's up, Schmuck? Would you trade Tyjae Spears and Sam Laporta for Najee Harris in a Superflex tiered PPR Dynasty League? I would trade Najee Harris for Tyjae Spears and Sam Laporta, but and more. But I wouldn't trade Tyjae Spears and Sam Laporta for Najee Harris. Another question related to my bold prediction: Najee Harris isn't going to be the RB1 in Pittsburgh. All right, Dustin Brown, who's wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, and who are you drafting from that wide receiver core? Christian Kirk was the wide receiver 1 last year. Calvin Ridley comes in and muddies those waters up a little bit. I'm pretty confident Ridley is going to be the wide receiver 1, and at ADP, I'm totally comfortable in drafting Calvin Ridley or Christian Kirk. I know that Zay Jones had a good year last year. There are plenty of wide receivers who are going in the same rounds as he is that I would much rather have. So I will not own any Zay Jones. Brian Summers, B. Summers. Who are the 1 or 2 players that no one is thinking of that will be a top performer by the end of the year? I don't know what you mean by top performer. That can be taken a bunch of different ways. Top 20, top 10. Let's put it this way. I am super high on Van Jefferson this year. I think he far exceeds his ADP and gets into the top 36. So if you're playing in a 3 wide receiver league, he definitely fits into that, into those wide receiver starting spots. If you play 3 wide receivers and flex, he definitely will fit the bill as a flex wide receiver also. I think he's going to have a huge year, and Cooper Kupp having a hamstring setback that just kind of boosts Van Jefferson a little bit in my eyes. All right, next question. This one's from Chris Abbott. Should I trade Marvin Mims or Jordan Addison for a late 2024 first round pick? And how far up the order do I have to go for it to be worthwhile? I say yes. I am staring at that first round in 2024, and you have Drake May and Caleb Williams, who are going to be dynasty roster changing quarterbacks. You have Raheem Sanders out of Arkansas, the running back, and Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. Those guys are going to be legit. The wide receivers out of Ohio State, Harrison Jr. and Egbuka, I think those guys are legit. There's going to be somebody in the first round in 2024 who's going to do more good for your dynasty team next year than Mims or Addison will be able to do. Now, here's the thing. Don't do it now. Give Mims some time to acclimate to the offense and start to get his value increased. Same with Addison. If Addison breaks out and is a top 24 wide receiver in the first 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to have a much easier time getting more than just that first round pick for him. Addison for a 2024 first is pretty even in terms of value right now. Mims plus something for the 2024 first rounder. Maybe throw in a 2024 third or a 2025 third plus Mims for a 2024 first. I would do that deal. But later on in the season, if their value increases, you're going to be able to get that 2024 first round pick straight up for either of those guys. So I would do that. All right, last question. This one is coming from @WeaponFF on Twitter. If you got to pick any fantasy analyst to be league mates with this year, who would it be and why? I think we all have one we want to be best friends with and one we want to beat so bad that they never forget our name. Yes, and I answered this on Twitter yesterday because I had to address it right away. Also, I can't tag people in this video, so I wanted to tag the guys on Twitter. So as a league mate, I went for @NoMoreParties and @Nick Ercolano. So Nick Ercolano, Big Dog's Got to Eat, and Noah Hills are two of my favorite analysts that are out there, and I would love to be in the league with them. Now, as far as beating, my favorite analyst out there is Peter Howard @PA Howdy. I'm in the European Fantasy Football Charity event, and so is he. So if I finish higher than him, that'll be kind of fulfilling. So those are the kind of victories that you want to have. The guys that you kind of look up to and think, "Oh God, he is so smart. He's an expert." To beat those guys, that's where you want to get your fulfillment. So thank you for the question @WeaponFF, and that does it for the mailbag. All right, and that's going to do it for today's video. Go ahead and like and subscribe. You can do that now. Follow me on Twitter @BigBonedFFB. Read my Substack. You can find the link to that in my Twitter account. I'm on DynastyPros.com. You can find my articles, Devy Battles, Dynasty Dilemmas, with my name in the bylines. I also write news for PlayerProfiler.com. I will see you guys after your drafts.